Good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening from wherever you're calling from. Welcome, and thank you all so much for joining us. My name is Joelle Chen, and I am an Associate Director of Admissions here at NYU. Along with being an admissions officer who recruits in Delaware, Washington, D.C., Maryland, and Northern Virginia, I'm also a proud NYU alum. And I am so excited to welcome you to our student life panel. So I am here to kind of guide you a little bit more about student life. But before getting there, I do want to talk a little bit about my time at NYU. So I graduated from our College of Arts and Science, where I majored in cinema studies, minored in anthropology and religious studies. I grew up in the DMV, and my journey to NYU was one that was incredibly exciting. Growing up in DC, Maryland, Virginia, I had access to an amazing city, but really coming to NYU, it all clicked for me. And I'm hoping that when you get to hear from these current students today, it also begins to click a little bit more for you. So it will be all about the NYU student experience. You'll have the chance to hear from NYU students that are representing a variety of different majors and campuses. You'll also be able to ask them questions to learn a little bit about life inside and outside of the classroom and the places that they've been able to find community. Our hope is today that you'll get a glimpse into our vibrant community and get the inside scoop of life at NYU from the people who know it best, which is our students. But before we dive in, we wanted to let you know a few housekeeping tips. So first of all attendees will be muted for the duration of this webinar, but we would love to hear from you. So if you have any questions for myself, for the panelists, feel free to drop your questions in the Q&A box located at the bottom of your screen. We have staff members and students who will be answering your questions behind the scenes. And even though we can't see your faces today, we definitely want to give you an opportunity to join the conversation. So please share your excitement with us in the chat. All right, so let's get started. And let's get started by kind of giving an overview of who we are. I feel like you've heard a lot about NYU today and yesterday if you attended, but it's important to reiterate. And NYU, in particular NYU New York, we have 10 undergraduate schools and colleges, roughly 230 areas of studies, and 4,000 courses. But what makes the NYU student experience so unique are our campuses and their seamless integration with the cities in which they're located. And NYU has degree-granting campuses in 3 of the most diverse cities of the world: New York, Shanghai, and Abu Dhabi. And no matter what campus you're on, learning at NYU goes beyond the classrooms. Our students are encouraged to take advantage of all of the resources and opportunities each city has to offer. So imagine you're at our Shanghai campus in the heart of the Pudong district, the financial district, near iconic buildings like the Pearl Tower. And you're not just learning about China's past, present, and future, but you're immersing yourself in the culture and, most importantly, in the language. Our students at NYU Shanghai graduate proficient in Mandarin. So imagine coming to Shanghai for the first time, and maybe you're familiar with Mandarin, maybe you've never taken the class in your life. But by the end of your sophomore year, feeling so confident in your language proficiency that you're able to get an internship in Shanghai where you're practicing your Mandarin every single day. And that's an NYU student who had that opportunity due to the immersive nature of the campus. Or maybe you're over in Abu Dhabi, our campus, which is located in the Saadiyat Cultural District, which is home to major cultural venues like the Louvre Museum. I remember visiting NYU Abu Dhabi and sitting in a class with a student who was coming from Georgia in the United States, a student from Pakistan, and a student actually coming from Nigeria, who were all talking about hip hop. It was a couple of years ago, it was a Kanye West album release, and they were talking about the impact of hip hop in their communities, in their personal life. I can only imagine what they have to say now. But they were really making these connections between a music genre that was created in New York City and how it has developed into this global phenomenon. And I highlighted where they were coming from because our Abu Dhabi campus is so global. You are going to be in a classroom with people from all over the world, and you're having these conversations that are invigorating and stimulating, but are also open. that you're not feeling limited and gaining new perspectives from all of their different experiences as well. And then here in New York, in Manhattan's famed Greenwich Village, or in downtown Brooklyn in the Brooklyn Metro Tech Center, our students are surrounded by cultural and artistic venues, as well as tech companies and startups. Imagine taking a class on the anthropology of New York City, the archaeology of New York City, and being able to actually go about New York City and really explore these sites. And this was me taking a class for my anthropology minor, where we were able to go to the slave burial that's around the corner from Wall Street. That we took a ferry around the tip of Manhattan and the lower part of Manhattan, and understanding how the waterways have built this city and kind of determined how this city was going to function as both a hub of arts, culture, fashion, business, and technology. Or even just going out and exploring the cultural offerings from a museum pass that gets you into a majority of the New York City museums for free, or getting discounted tickets to go to Broadway as it reopens right now. We want our students to push themselves outside of their comfort zone, but we're also still supporting them as they live and learn. Our director of admission often likes to talk about life in 3 different zones. You have your comfort zone that you're familiar with, you have the learning zone, and then you have the panic zone all the way over there. We don't want to get you in the panic zone, but we do want to get you outside of that comfort zone where you now are going to feel comfortable being uncomfortable, challenging yourself, taking new courses, trying something different. For example, I hated science in school, in high school. I was not a science student. Humanities was all for me, but I had to take a science class. And I ended up taking a science class that was on human evolution. And it was through the anthropology department. And it was amazing. We went to exhibits at the Natural Science History Museum. Our professor brought in speakers from all over the world. And it was so incredible that me, a person who didn't like the sciences, ended up declaring a minor in anthropology. And that's an NYU story of trying those different things. And maybe you realize you don't like it, or maybe you realize you love it, but we're here to support you throughout. And so our students have access to resources and offices that work to address the full spectrum of student needs, from medical attention to, as I mentioned, those discounted concert tickets, welcome weeks to help transition you into the university. Maybe you were at our previous session and heard from our Office of Student Success, who is there to support you from day one to the end. So with this approach, our NYU is preparing our students to be successful in an ever more interconnected world. So now that you have a sense of student life here at NYU, it's time to hear from the students. So panelists, as I mention your name, please share a little bit about yourselves. So I'm going to start with Mahmoud.
Hello, everyone. For some reason, I can't turn on the camera, but I think you can hear me. My name is Mahmoud Al-Bay. I'm so happy to be here with you. I'm currently talking to you from Abu Dhabi. It's almost like 11 p.m. here. I don't know where you're all located, but it's so good to see everyone here. In 2016, I got the opportunity to go on an exchange program in Colorado. And during that time, I got the chance to go to New York, and I was walking in New York. I saw NYU's flag, and never have I ever would have thought that 3 or 4 years later, I will end up in this place, this amazing place. I'm currently in the track of studying, of finishing bioengineering, and I also got the beautiful chance this year to work with the admissions office as an admissions ambassador. And I'm so happy to answer any of the questions that you have.
Thanks so much, Mahmoud, and for calling us so late in Abu Dhabi right now. Next, I'm going to go to Nadia.
Hi, my name is Nadia. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia, and I am currently studying biology in the 3-4 joint dental program with CAS and the College of Dentistry. And yeah, I am currently in New York. I am in a residence hall. I'm in RA this year, so excited to be here.
Thanks, Nadia. And I'm sure we will have a lot of questions about living in residential life, so I'll be sure to come your way. Next, we'll go to Julia.
Hello, everybody. I hope you can see me. I also can't tell if you can see me, but I'm so happy to be here and so happy to have you here. As I mentioned, my name is Julia. I am currently tuning in from New York City. I am a student here at the Tisch School of the Arts studying drama. Hopefully, I will also be double minoring in producing at Tisch, as well as BMT, which is Business of Entertainment, Music, Media and Technology at the Stern School of Business. And I'm actually born and raised in Warsaw, Poland. So I am an international student here at NYU, second year currently, and really excited to be here and talk a little bit more about my experience at this beautiful school. So yes, thank you.
Thanks so much, Julia. And last but definitely not least, Hunter.
Yeah, hi guys, my name's Hunter. I'm from Chicago, Illinois. I'm currently a junior at NYU. I started off studying business at the Stern School of Business, but I'm now studying, I'm still studying business, but I'm also studying film and TV at Tisch through a dual degree program. Outside of the admissions ambassador program, I'm also involved in the RA community. Nadia and I are actually both RAs at Lafayette, which is the residence hall south of campus. And I'm also involved in the Mlk Scholars Group, and my pronouns are he, him, his. Excited to have answer all of your questions today.
Thanks, Hunter. And I love hearing that you're in Lafayette. I lived there when I was an undergraduate. My favorite upper class residence hall, but we all have our biases, so that's okay. Well, thank you all again so much for being here. And panelists, as a reminder, please be sure to use the raise hand function so that I can call on you, have you share your amazing insight, and so that we don't talk over each other. But my first question is going to be for all of you, and it's going to take us back maybe a couple of years where you're applying to college, you're looking at NYU. So tell us about your journey to NYU and what ultimately drew you to this university. All right, I'll give you, that was a race to first. I'm gonna go with Nadia.
Okay, I know for me, actually for a long time, I had my heart set on a different university. They also had a very similar program. And the summer before my senior year, they stopped that program. So I was like quickly looking for like my new home. And I found out that NYU had the same program, and I'd always heard about NYU and like thought so highly of it. So I was like, oh yeah, I'll apply there. And I remember like on decision day, getting my acceptance, I was like, oh my God, like this is, the best school I've gotten into. And I was so excited, and reading more about how much of an effort NYU made to make its campus diverse, really in conjunction with the fact that they had something that was like so niche to what I wanted to do, reassured me that NYU would be the best place for me.
Thanks, Nadia. Mahmoud, go ahead.
Okay, for me, there was a little bit of like a plot twist in my story. So my goal was never like to actually study abroad. My goal was to study medicine in my own country. But then in high school, thanks to the flexible testing a policy at NYU AD and NYU in general, I was able to apply for NYU after I got into a pharmacy school, which I wasn't really happy with because I wanted to study medicine. But then a friend recommended NYU AD for me because he told me the liberal arts education is great when it comes to like if you want to explore your interests, or also if you still want to go for med school, it's going to be a really good start for you, especially because like NYU is a great name and it's going to look really good in your application if you want to apply for med schools. So I was like, okay, I'm going to give it a try, although the acceptance rate at Abu Dhabi's campus is fairly low, and I'm applying with my own national certificate grades, which is not very common in here. I got in and I was very happy about it. And surprisingly, I'm not doing medicine anymore. I'm doing bioengineering thanks to the liberal arts education, because I was able to do research in bioengineering. And I absolutely fell in love with this. Like I can like apply what I'm learning through bioengineering, and I'm still in the healthcare field. So yeah, I think after graduation, I'm gonna pursue master's in bioengineering, and I'm not gonna do medicine.
That's so exciting to hear. And kind of like Nadia, it feels like you both had your own twists and turns, whether it's to NYU or just once you get here. I very rarely meet people who come in with one major and then end up graduating with that same major. So not unusual at all. Julia, go ahead.
Yeah, so for me, it was a little bit different because I honestly was always in love with the idea of coming to NYU. So it was definitely a number one for me. So that definitely made the application process very stressful. Although I did apply to many schools in the United States, NYU was always my dream school, as you would probably call it. So it was definitely an incredible day when I did get accepted. But the reason I actually applied to this school, I've definitely always known that I wanted to pursue a performing arts path at a university level. And Tisch School of the Arts was definitely, first of all, it is one of the, if not the top school for what I hope to pursue when I'm out of college. But I definitely, yes, I wanted to pursue this in a very kind of rigorous manner, but at the same time, I never really wanted to let go of that kind of general education and being able to study so many other different things, because in high school, I was interested in much more than just performance, including economics and psychology and things that are, could be very different than what I want to study. So I definitely wanted that specific conservatory style education in performing arts and in acting, but not letting go of other things. And definitely NYU being a liberal arts institution, kind of like Mahmoud said, it allowed me to pursue much more than just that one initial primary passion of mine. So I think that was definitely something that just drawn me to NYU. And of course, the city of itself being in New York City, it's a cultural hub, having all these experiences that are also provided by the university itself. Pretty much, all theatrical experiences, but also galleries, museums, and many, many more was something that I definitely wanted to be surrounded by being in college. So yes.
Thanks, Julia, and thank you all for answering that first question. So talking about how you got to NYU, but could you talk a little bit more about what that transition to campus was like? Were there things that surprised you? So if you could talk a little bit about that transition, that would be great. Take a second, think about it. Hunter, you were ready, go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm from Chicago. I grew up in the city, but I finished off high school and middle school out in the suburbs, which is definitely a different vibe than the city for sure. So much more space, much more greenery, which was different than coming to New York City. But one of the biggest things that I guess surprised me was the amount of things to do in the city. I don't think you're ever at a loss for things to do, which is a great thing. I always knew that I wanted to, coming to college and coming to university, I always knew I wanted to study in an urban environment. And so coming to NYU, there's a bunch of different activities that the school puts on, but also as a student, I lived at Lipton my freshman year in one of the themed engagement communities, Vive en Español, on the 10th floor. Shout out 10th floor. And so there was a lot of things to do and a lot of community, and I definitely didn't feel like it was overwhelming as some people may think. And just like being in a city, like I mentioned before, there's so many things to do, and a lot of the times you can find out, you can do them for free through NYU or through a discounted price, or there's just a bunch of different things. And that was probably the biggest thing that surprised me, just the amount of things that were possible. So, yeah.
Hunter, you stay living in the best residence halls. I love that for you. But you're so right. There is so much to do. And thankfully, a lot of them are really low cost or free. So it becomes accessible. It's not something that you have to worry about because there's a free street fair that's just closed down several blocks near campus that you can engage with. Julia, go ahead.
Yeah, I definitely also found the same experience kind of to this day. And I feel like that's always going to be the case, even out of college. Just New York City is such, there's just so much to do. But for me, I think I definitely like to speak on the fact that being an international student was very kind of, scary at first. And I didn't really know how the transition will be like, although I do come from a city and I love, big urban kind of like countryside, like big urban areas, and definitely wasn't something completely new in terms of the environment, but I definitely did think about being far away from home. And that, I guess, goes not only for international students, but anyone who has, lived away from their family for that amount of time. So it definitely was very intimidating at first, but I found that the community of kind of also the first year residential hall experience that we have here in NYU was very supportive. I definitely had a wonderful RA my freshman year at the Founders Hall. Recommend. Beautiful building and beautiful dorms. I think that was the best one, but Lipton also had a lot of friends, so I'm not going to say anything bad about that. But it was definitely a very supportive kind of community that I was able to build in the first weeks of school. It was very surprising how quickly you're able to meet people from all over the world. The diverse communities kind of definitely made me feel safe in the sense that so many people are at a similar point of kind of just coming together in this huge city, but being able to be supported by the community was something that I was surprised by. I definitely expected it, but it was very assuring and helpful in the first months of school.
I think that's a surprise for a lot of students, is the ease of finding communities. And we'll talk a little bit more about that, but I'm glad you brought that up. Mahmoud, go ahead.
Okay, I think I would just want to address the second half of the question, and that is, what are some of the things that surprised me? I think is like the fact that NYU AD's campus, it feels like I'm studying in two countries. Like I have a part of the US in Abu Dhabi. So it feels like inside on campus, I feel like I'm in the US with a crazy diversity, where I think my class 2024, there are 85 nationalities represented. And then once I leave campus, I'm in Abu Dhabi, in a totally different country. So yeah, this is definitely something that surprised me and is making my experience here more enjoyable.
Thank you so much for sharing that. So to kind of go on to what Julia was mentioning a little bit, could you all talk about what communities have you found a home in on campus? Yeah, Nadia, you were ready.
I know for me, one thing that I had always seen growing up in the South was Greek life. And so coming to NYU, that's something that I was kind of very interested in. And I was really excited because whenever I was going through recruitment and everything like that, it was a lot less stressful than I had always seen. And so I found a lot of my early on friends in my sorority, which was super amazing because it was just a sisterhood, and I was always the oldest sister growing up, and so it was cool having girls who were my age to look up to.
I love that. So in our New York campus, about 11% of our student body participates in Greek life. So it's a really great community for students who are interested, while also not being the only way to make community. So it's this really nice balance. And y'all are so involved as well in community service activities that happen on campus. That's great to hear. Anyone else for communities that they've kind of found a home in? Julia, go ahead.
I definitely found a community within my major, which may be kind of obvious, but being in kind of first of all, being in drama is definitely kind of a major in which you spend a lot of time with the people that you're studying with because of rehearsal time and school and class and everything. And I definitely found a community in that because of kind of the shared passion, but at the same time, people having so many different aspirations and what they want to do with that later on. So I think it was definitely something important to me to be constantly surrounded by inspiring, motivating, people. And I definitely met so many incredible, talented artists that I definitely would see and imagine collaborating in the future. So I feel like that was very important. But apart from that, I also found a great community. I'm actually part of an NYU-based student-led dance company, which is also very dear to my heart because in that situation, so many of the students, part of it, are from completely contrasting majors. So I'm still able to kind of pursue that artistic side of me that I'm not doing strictly in school, but with people who are studying, or on a pre-med track or studying business. And that was definitely a great community to share passion with, but meet people from entirely different backgrounds.
Thank you for sharing. And Mahmoud, I saw your hand was up. Did you still want to share a little bit about your communities?
I would love to.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's like because I've been doing running since very young age, finding a running community here, a small running community where like we're able to get up and hit a morning run, morning jog before classes start around 7 a.m. That was definitely something fun, especially because the restrictions here in Abu Dhabi, it's pretty strict here because of COVID restrictions since last semester. So was probably the only like getaway or like time what I'm able like to socialize legally with the members of my community. So yeah, that definitely helped with my transition here.
Thank you. I'm always envious of folks who can motivate themselves to get up to run in the morning. That is a gift I unfortunately don't have. So I see there's a lot of questions in the chat, so I want to make sure that we have enough time for them. So I have one final question from me before we get to the students and attendees. And my final question is, what is one piece of advice you would give to our attendees who may be considering applying to NYU? Take a second. I know you got to think, you got to go back a second, think about that application process. Always a tie. Okay, Nadia, go first.
I would say when you're applying, really just try to show the admissions board like you as a person. They'll get all of your grades and test scores if you send them and all that. And those are, numbers, and sometimes they're important numbers, but I think it's most important to like show your personality and show growth that you've had over the years and your passion and things like that. So you don't have to be perfect in your essays and things like that. I know those are stressful, but it's just more important to show like your authentic self.
Absolutely. Perfection's overrated and there's only one you. So really wanting to make sure you get across who you are. Julia, go ahead.
For me, I think something that I would definitely like to kind of advise I would say trust the process during the whole application process, and trust that you will end up in a school that is the best fit for you, because I feel like that really is the case always. I remember, I definitely know NYU in my mind was plan A, and I didn't really see myself going anywhere else, but I did apply to many other schools, like I mentioned before, just because I didn't want to have an option to, choose potentially and kind of figure out where I really want to go. And I remember for me, I like to tell this story just because I feel like it's definitely, gives hope in terms of wherever you want to go. But I received my acceptance letter from NYU as my last school. So leading up to that point, I've been receiving many rejection letters. I've received a few acceptances that I was very proud of, but I wasn't fully satisfied yet because I was waiting for that final NYU one. But I was getting rejected from schools which in my mind were a little worse, or schools that I was comparing, like if I didn't get into this school, then how am I supposed to get into my dream school, top school in the world for acting? So definitely was a very stressful period where I was losing hope. But when that acceptance letter did come, I very much kind of just reminded myself that I'm meant to come here, and this is where I was supposed to go, and this is my only option right now, and as in like there's no way I'm not coming to this school because it was my dream. And I really think that, even if you do believe that some place is a fit for you, I would definitely trust whatever happens is meant to be. In a way, you will find your fit, you will find a place that you feel comfortable and safe and passionate about. So that is my piece of advice.
Julia, couldn't have said it better myself. Thank you. Hunter, go ahead.
I'll say two things, I think.
Yeah.
The first thing that I'll say is more so maybe for just generally looking into different schools and applying to different schools. I think for that, I definitely, if I were to like tell something to my younger self, I would definitely say look into larger schools like NYU, where that have a variety of different programs and a lot of different things. Because for me, at least personally, as an 17, 18-year-old, I am, I'm not, even now, like I'm not exactly too sure what I want to do. And if you go to a larger school like NYU, I feel like there is much more opportunity to pursue a variety of different things that overlap with a lot of your interests. And then the second thing I'll say about just advice for applying, I think being specific to why you want to go to that school is something that is pretty important, I feel like, because there's a bunch of other schools that you could apply to, and I'm sure you do, but just being specific about why specifically you want to go to NYU or whatever school that is, like X school, is definitely a benefit to your benefit. For example, like I think NYU is one of the only programs that has a dual degree in business and film.
Yeah.
So where else would I be able to do something like that combined two of my interests? So just being specific and looking also into schools that have a variety of different programs, I would say, are my two pieces of advice.
Great advice, Hunter, and cannot emphasize enough doing that research and showing fit for NYU, especially in the application. There's a why NYU essay question. You really want to show why NYU, that you've done the research, that you know the program you're applying to, because that's a big part of our review process. All right, Mahmoud, you wrap up this section.
Yeah, okay. I just want to tell you, like, you got to trust the process and you got to put in the effort. I can share like some personal thing, and that is like before coming to NYU, I literally failed like 11 times. Maybe I was a little unfortunate. I don't know. I wanted a certain goal, and I thought it's like this is the end of the world, but it turned out it's not. I trusted the process. I kept working hard. I did my research, and then I ended up in a place where I think is like the best fit for me. So, with that in mind, you should keep working hard, do your research, as everybody mentioned here. But to be very specific, when it comes to the college application, I cannot emphasize enough on how your personal essay should be actually personal. Do not restate your achievements, your goals, things that you have already mentioned in your application, because the admissions office wants to read something unique about you. They want to remember your application. So yeah, please mention a story that would be remembered for the admissions office, and keep up the hard work.
Great advice. And a reminder, this is Pathways Open House, and your pathway is going to be different for NYU for the college application process. And just to remember that in the review. Mood, you have final thoughts to add?
I just want to jump in,
Yeah.
like a very small tip. Reach out to current students and ask them about their experiences. Maybe they would have something for you for the NYU essay.
Great advice. And we'll definitely at the end of this give you some contact to reach out to this incredible panel. But these are all of my questions. So now we're going to take some questions from the Q&A box. I see that there are lots in there. So I'm going to go through these and open them up. All right. So we have an anonymous attendee who is asking, how have you managed your school life and social life successfully enough to keep up with your studies at NYU? That's always a good question. Nadia, go ahead.
I use a planner for everything. I plan out like everything. I will like plan in myself like downtime, because otherwise I won't take it for myself. So I would highly recommend that, like whether it's a plan, for me, like a weekly planner works really well. Like the ones that you keep on your desk and you like rip off the page for each week. Feels kind of bad because I'm like killing trees, but it really works for me. I know some people like the planners that open up like that, or like Google Calendar. I put everything on Google Calendar. So definitely like schedule, write down the time that you've committed to everything, and also schedule time to do homework, because that is the big one that I forgot my first year. I had all these schedules and I was like squeezing in homework, and give yourself time to like do things that you need to do.
Great advice. I feel like Google should pay us for how much we advertise Google Calendar, because it is a lifesaver. Mahmoud, go ahead.
Okay, the way I view college life, at least for me, is that it's like a triangle. It's like one corner you got social life, other corner you got academics, and the third corner is sleeping schedule. So yeah, so if you want to socialize and study, that's probably gonna come at the cost of your sleeping. So I think throughout the year, you like have to prioritize your goals depending on what time of the year. Maybe you want to socialize. Maybe it's not a very busy time of the year when it comes to academics. So it's totally fine to have a very flexible triangle. I don't have a fixed one. Sometimes I would stick to my 10 p.m. sleep schedule and wake up at 7 for my morning runs. Sometimes I would maybe on Thursday or Friday stay up to 2 just to socialize with friends. So it's totally fine to be flexible.
I love that idea, this triangle of like life. That's college. That's really, really good advice there. That sleep angle, though, it suffers sometimes. All right, I got another anonymous question. What is something you wish you could have known as a first-year student and later on to the further years at NYU? So you talked a little bit about this, but anything that you wish you knew as a first-year student, maybe about getting involved on campus or that transition? Julia, go ahead.
This is kind of not really about kind of like campus, well, also, okay, not really campus life or academics, but what I think I would say, I definitely was very caught up in kind of school life and university life, as in I was very much a student and only a student, which I think, I was always very much, that person who just full schedule, kind of like Nadia said, just everything constantly school, sleep, work, school, sleep, work. Yeah. But I definitely, what I wish my first year would, my first year self would remember or think about is also social life, but in the sense where you also experience where you are. I mean, we live in New York City, and I feel like part of being in school here is also experiencing the city itself, not only, revolving around school and work and sleeping. So I wish that I kind of, took more advantage of where I am and all the resources and opportunities that NYU gives with the city. And just not really be stuck solely on getting good grades, getting, perfectly written papers. Of course, that all of that is a very important thing. And I think if you work hard and you know what your priorities are in terms of school, then you're all set. But I think that other part of just being in the city and experiencing all that it has to offer, and even taking, a walk every day and having fun with your friends and things like that are very crucial to also having a successful experience at college. So I think just remembering that it's not all about school and grades and being perfect as a student, but also as a person in the city or wherever you are, which campus.
Absolutely. Take a little bit of pressure off of yourself. And I can vouch for going out for that walk or just going out and exploring, and you run across so many different things. There are so many neighborhoods and areas of the city that I wish I took a note down, because you go on a walk, you see it, and then it disappears and you never see it again. So really going out and exploring. Mahmoud, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to echo Julia in terms of like sometimes, I mean, in my first year, I was just so shocked with like my classmates and how much they have achieved. So it becomes a little bit of like, with the amount of support that I'm getting from the school, it becomes a little bit toxic. That is like, okay, there is always something that I should be doing. I shouldn't be resting. I should be getting that internship or getting that research position. But actually, everybody's got their own race. We're not competing against anyone. We're just like being ourselves. We're on our own path. So that is something that I'm trying to work on this semester. I've actually applied for a lot of stuff on campus in my first year and found that, oh my God, I got to juggle like 4 or 5 things in my sophomore year. So I actually had to like step down from a few positions because I just can't. So yeah, that's something important to keep in mind. Your mental health.
Mental health, absolutely. Which I saw another question in the chat, I believe another anonymous attendee asking a little bit about like mental health resources on campus. So speaking of that, could any of y'all talk a little bit about mental health resources or what you've done to make sure you're taking care of that? Nadia, go ahead.
Yeah, so the wellness center on campus like handles like things related to mental health. So they can schedule like therapy appointments, psychiatry appointments, anything like that. And I think now it's like unlimited free therapy, if I'm not mistaken, which is amazing. And I've like gone to the therapy there. My therapist there, I like love her. All of my friends know about her. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go see so-and-so today. But I like definitely encourage everyone to like at least try it out, because like everybody's got something they need to like talk about, or even if things are good, just like appreciating that life is good and like that sort of thing is like part of self-care. So yeah, highly recommend the wellness center. And also like they can connect you with other people if you like for any reason like don't want to go through NYU or can't. And then they also they're like a really cool thing. They are one of the free like truly confidential resources on campus. Like a lot of positions are like mandated reporters, so that's always nice, like to have something where you can like feel like you can truly speak freely. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing those resources. Very, very important to take advantage of the free mental health resources, especially when you don't have to pay for them. Hunter, go ahead.
Yeah, Nadia did a good job of mentioning about the different resources, mental health resources, but I'll just add, I think that just prioritizing your health, even when school gets hard, is definitely an important thing. And for me personally, I do that through a variety of different ways, primarily by getting out as much as possible. So I try and swim at Palladium a lot. I try and run by the Hudson a lot. I played tennis yesterday at the Hudson, which was super fun. And again, going off of the thing that we were mentioning previously, that there's, a lot of things to do in New York, and just finding that thing, whether it be, getting outside or hanging out with friends or baking. One of my residents mentioned that, she bakes a lot to kind of de-stress, which I thought was pretty cool. So find your thing that kind of relieves you of stress, and just like be cognizant of the fact that, your health comes first. And there's a lot of ways that you can kind of prioritize that in a place like NYU, and also in the city of New York. So, yeah.
Thanks, Hunter. And absolutely, health, physical and mental, is always the priority. I actually have a question directly for you, Hunter, from Christina, about talking a little bit more about the MLK program.
Yeah, so the MLK, I love the MLK program. So they actually did a bunch of different updates this past, I think last year. So they've definitely expanded the program. My cohort, I came in with a group of 30. I think the cohort under me came in 60, and I think they're actually expanding it. I've heard to over 60, closer to like 100. So that's definitely good news. My story personally, I did a lot of work with regards to diversity and inclusion in high school. We had this club called FIRE, which was fostering intercultural respect and community, I think, along those lines, where I did a lot of that work working with the Board of Education in my district. And so I applied to NYU without knowing about the Mlk Scholars Program, funny enough. And then I got an email about it and inviting me over to Scholars Weekend, which is a weekend where it's weekend on the square. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar, but it's a weekend when all the admitted students are able to come in. And so all the scholars were there as well. And I got to meet a bunch of different people. And so I ended up deciding to come to NYU. A big reason was because of the Mlk Scholars Program. And it does provide a lot of financial support. So as a freshman, I know personally, I did a lot of work with the cohort, a lot of volunteer work. So we volunteered at the ALS walk-in Washington, D.C. during fall break. All of this was free, by the way, which was great. During the school year, we also went to, I think it was called Leadership High School down by Battery Park, to teach a little bit to the high school students. And also we were supposed to go to Berlin in the spring of my freshman year, but that was when COVID hit. So unfortunately we didn't get to do that. But yeah, the Mlk Scholars Program is a great program for, building community if you're interested in initiatives related to diversity and inclusion. And I think now on the application, you can actually indicate interest. So when I applied, there was no like tick box, but I think now in the application, you can check the box if you're interested in applying. So it really is a great program. And if you want to look more into it, I know NYU has a website. So yeah.
Thanks for sharing, Hunter. And you're correct. So you can now apply directly for the MLK program on the application. So if that sounds like a program for you, that you're really passionate, interested about social justice, diversity, inclusion, continuing the work you might have done in high school, or just really beginning that work in college, it's a really, really great program for you. So a question for all of you, anonymous attendee. All of you are coming from outside of the New York City area. So how have you coped with being away from home during your time at NYU? Nadia, go ahead.
Yes, I know for me, my first semester, my mom ended up visiting me a few weeks in. And then I have some like sort of distant relatives in New York. So I started connecting with them a little bit. Like I went over to my cousin's house for Thanksgiving, and then just like hanging out with friends a lot. And like over the years, like I've gone to like visit roommates' families. And so kind of like getting to like borrow other people's families for the weekend or something is always fun.
I love that.
And then like I usually go home like once a semester, like just for breaks or whatever. But I would say also like let your family know if you're like missing them. Like they probably will be missing you too. And like I know for me, like I was like just all COVID'd up. Like I was feeling the effects of everybody being in isolation last year. And so like my dad actually came up and he like visited me, and I was like, wow, I really needed to see my dad. So definitely like try to be open with your families. I know it's hard. I know sometimes it feels a little cheesy, but they're probably feeling the same things. And like hopefully you guys can do something to make it better. I know my dad like sent me cinnamon buns the other week, and I was like, oh my God, because it was like a piece of home. So even stuff like that is nice.
Those little care packages always make a difference. Absolutely. Mahmoud, go ahead.
So if you search on Instagram, NYU ADEG Embassy, you will literally find a picture of me and my roommate. We did an Instagram profile called NYU Egyptian Embassy.
Oh,
And we're
wow.
trying to make our room like as Egyptian as it can possibly be, with the flag and like some Egyptian sayings and stuff like that. So yeah, it feels like a piece of home. We would like have some people over, like, I don't know, listen to some Egyptian music. Whenever we feel like we want to do it on some weekends, we would have some Egyptian food. So it's not like we're homesick. Like we definitely have the times when we're homesick, but also it is also good to have a sense of home where you're staying.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's how we're coping with our homesickness, I guess.
Julia, go ahead.
Most of it was already said. I was going to say very similar things. I think making the way where you live, your living space, as cozy and homey and this comfortable as possible is definitely a big factor. I know living in dorms can be sometimes overwhelming, but it can also be very, very nice and comforting. And you always have someone there. There's advantages and disadvantages to that, but it definitely makes you feel a little bit more kind of like around people's, it's definitely helpful. And I remember, just whether it's decorating your room, kind of like Mahmoud said, with your home, some little taste from home, or just making it comfortable and knowing every day that, despite your crazy busy schedules, you're able to come home every night and feel comfortable is definitely a big plus. That, even if you miss home, you have a space where you feel homey in a sense, or cozy. And then I'm definitely that person who calls their family every day, and it definitely is difficult because it's a 6-hour difference for me as well. So it makes it even harder to be in touch with them. But finding those times, kind of like Nadia said, to call them and tell them that you miss them, that you love them. I don't think it's cheesy at all. I think it's very important in these days we're able to have FaceTime and see them. It definitely makes it easier to just, call and check in on them. Yeah. It helps a lot. It helps a lot. And yeah, and for me also, just staying busy makes you forget about it. So no, that's kind of, as a joke, but also very true.
Very true. Yeah. And it's a reminder, so many of our panelists are saying they miss home. It can be hard. And so you're not going through this alone. You have your RA if you're living on campus there to support you, but you also have affinity clubs on campus. I remember one of my classmates actually created the Canada student group on campus because she was Canadian and she missed home and wanted to have a group where fellow Canadians could get together and talk about missing home. So you have those affinity clubs on group. You have like international students groups on campus. And then you also have the city, whether it's New York City or Abu Dhabi, there's so many cultural communities around the city that you could get a little bit of a taste of home as well. So I have another question in the chat. So many, we love to see it. Any favorite traditions at NYU? Tell me about your favorite NYU traditions. Nadia, go ahead.
Okay, one of my favorite things that NYU does is like the concerts. I know my freshman year there was like Pop Smoke, and then there was one with like Chief Keef and Roddy Ricch, and it's like
Oh, wow.
so cool. Like
Yeah.
you get to see artists that you're like fans of, and they get like good people. Like I think once they had Doja Cat, but like it's also like kind of like a fun flex. Like all of your friends from other schools are gonna be like, oh my god, like is Pop Smoke in your student center? And it's like, yes, he is. But it's really cool, and it's like a nice little perk of being at NYU because I think like every once in a while you'll have to pay. Most of them are free, some aren't, but it's like maybe $10 or $15. So like once again, like very accessible compared to like hundreds of dollars for tickets. So that's one of my favorite NYU things for sure.
Definitely a favorite tradition of, I'd say, a lot of students. Anyone else have some favorite traditions they want to share? Mahmoud, go ahead.
I feel very fortunate to study on an island, literally. So I'm surrounded by water everywhere. So yeah, whenever I feel like I don't know, want to just have some time either for myself or like maybe hang out with friends, we would literally go for a run, go to the beach. It's like 5 kilometers away. I don't know what is that in miles. But
Close enough.
3 miles, 3 miles, I think. But yeah, this is one of my favorite things about studying at NYU AD, that I'm studying on an island in the middle of the desert.
Oh, yeah. I definitely see stories of students kayaking and really just enjoying the climate and just the beauty of Saadiyat Island, but also of the city. Definitely. Okay, I think we might have time for maybe 2 questions left. So one question I see from Haley: what are your personal favorite clubs you've joined at NYU that you'd recommend future students joining? So if any of you are president of clubs, this is your time to recruit. Julia, go ahead.
I mean, you want to be a student ambassador. That's all I wanted to tell you. That is just the best job, which is crazy that it's a job on campus. I consider it more of like a community as well. I feel terrible that I didn't mention it before during the community question, because that is a community that is just so important and so welcoming. And I'm just always so grateful to be a part of such an incredible community that just cares deeply about every single member of it. It's incredible. I definitely vouch for being a student ambassador. I think it's not necessarily a club, but it is a community that, when I was applying, I was completely mesmerized by ambassadors who were giving me tours around the park and helping out and supporting through the process. So I definitely encourage to apply for an ambassador position. That's one thing that I just want to say.
Thanks, Julia. Mahmoud, go ahead.
It's not really a club, but I highly recommend trying to get a research position, especially if you're a STEM major. The professors at NYU are really open to having undergrad researchers in their labs. It's actually kind of a win-win situation, I'm sorry. Like for them to have a bigger group, that means like more publications, but for you also, that means that you're gonna get an exposure to some research fields that you might not have known about. And it also could be something that you might consider like pursuing later after graduation from NYU for your postgrad. So yeah, doing research is something that I'm really enjoying here as well.
Absolutely. And that's its own kind of community. You really create these great bonds with faculty member when conducting research, whether it's you or a group of students, really creating that community there. All right. So I think I have time for just that one last question. Gonna eeny, meeny, miny, figure this one out. All right. We're going to go with Timituyo, who they're asking, are there any things unique to NYU that you think are amazing and important for applicants to know? I saw all of you lean back a little bit trying to think. Nadia, go ahead.
I'd say probably one of the most unique things about NYU is like its location. Like, obviously we're not the only college in Manhattan, but I think we are truly like the best positioned. Lower Manhattan is where everything happens, to be honest. I'm not just saying that because I've live here now. Like I've been uptown, nothing against it, but there's less going on. And like down here, if you're in business, financial districts right there. Soho has all of this like art going on, like East Village has all these great restaurants, there's Chinatown. So everything is right here. And there are so many opportunities, whether it's like networking, jobs, internships, research, and like New York as a whole even is like so like vibrant, and there's such like a melting pot of like different cultures and people from literally all across the globe. Like coming here, I was like, oh my God, like I've never tried, like I remember I tried empanadas like my first time visiting New York, and I was like, this is literally mind blowing. Like even the cuisines are like amazing, and to like learn so much about different cultures. So I would say being in New York, being in Manhattan, Lower Manhattan is like such like so invaluable. I didn't realize it whenever I was like, oh, I'm gonna go to NYU. But like being here, I'm like, oh my God, I can't imagine if I was anywhere else. Like it's amazing.
Thanks, Nadia. Hunter, go ahead.
I think I'll go ahead and build off Nadia's point. But for me personally, I don't think there's like one thing that sticks out, but more so of like a bunch of different things for me. So again, Nadia mentioned location. We talked a little bit for me about the Mlk Scholars Program, study abroad. Like NYU is a huge study abroad, school, and also I'm actually going to Singapore next spring through business exchange program through Stern. So school specific study abroad opportunities are out there as well. I mentioned the BS BFA dual degree. Like there's a bunch of these things that for me, I don't think all of those things could come together like that other than a place like NYU. So for all the students out there listening, I encourage everyone to try and find the school that has all of those things. It could be NYU, it could not be, but make sure it's a good fit for you, and make sure that those specifics, kind of like what we were talking about before, that are unique to that school are aligned with what you're interested in and what you're looking into. And once you find a lot of those things, those unique things that each school kind of has, or maybe that's NYU, then that's a good indication of when you'll know that it's a good fit for you and a good school for you. But the couple that I mentioned were a couple that popped up into mind that all came together pretty perfectly here at NYU, for me, at least personally.
Thanks, Hunter, and have such a great time in Singapore next semester as well. Julia, go ahead.
To add on, I think something that makes NYU very unique and special is how they really care about you as a student, but also kind of like what will happen when you graduate and how you will kind of go into the real world. And I think that support system throughout your whole experience, whether it's your freshman year or your senior year when you're on your way out, I think it's very incredible. I bet many schools have that, but from my personal experience, I really appreciate my professors kind of emphasizing the fact that we're all collaborating. I feel like that's something that I hear a lot, especially within my program. They take care of kind of leading you through and kind of mentoring you and what you might want to do with your major, with who you are in the future, and how they, for me, it's incredibly valuable to hear kind of like from a person that's teaching me or professor in the field, how kind of being able to redirect you or direct you in the sense of like taking into consideration who you are as a person and how you, what you may do in the future. So I think that's a big one for me, where kind of there's this constant support, and you're always able to reach out to your professor in terms of what's next. And I feel like that could be something that many of us or parents worry about too. So I think that's an important thing to keep in mind as well, that here you're never really left alone. We have a wonderful Center for Career, which is Wasserman Center. They definitely help you out with preparing for interviews, reading resumes, getting internships and jobs. Just Nadia mentioned this a little bit. I think it's incredibly helpful to know how to then transition into real life after college, because it does go by very quickly, unfortunately. But yes, so that something for me.
Thanks, Julia. And Mahmoud, wrap us up.
Okay, I think one of my most favorite things here at NYU is basically the connection and the relation between the professors and the students. And I think that's a result of so many factors. One of them, and I'm sorry to be a little biased towards Abu Dhabi, and that is like the relatively small class size. Like my class is only like 400 students. So the student to faculty ratio is relatively small. And that really gives you the opportunity to like see the professor casually walking on like on the High Line, which is like where the student live, or maybe seeing the vice chancellor having a coffee right next to you, or maybe seeing the dean of students working out in the same gym that you're working in. And that makes it a lot easier for you to build connections with the faculty and show them your face. It's actually really funny. It's like he would talk about like with the students when I talk with my classmates. It's like, yeah, this professor is great and I know them. I was like, oh, do you have a class with them? They're like, no, we just like went for a morning run with them. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, that's funny. And yeah, it's that connection that I think that I really cherish here.
Well, thank you all so much for sharing your experiences with us today and sharing your pathways to NYU, what that's looked like and your pathways throughout your time at NYU as well. So I hope that everyone enjoyed our panel and really had the chance to learn about the NYU student experience. So we encourage you to find us on social media at Meet NYU. I told you I'd give you a way to connect with our current students. So follow us. You probably see some of these lovely faces doing social media takeovers, answering your questions, and a really great way to connect and get a sense of that NYU experience. And you can also look on our website where you can find your admissions counselor and reach out to us. So again, DC, Delaware, Northern Virginia, and Maryland, it's me. Email me. Happy to answer those questions. If you have any additional questions, feel free to contact our office when we reopen tomorrow. We hope you will join us for our virtual tour that's happening this afternoon at 4:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But right before that, you're going to hear some closing remarks. So with that, thank you all so much for attending, and I hope you enjoy the rest of Pathways. Goodbye.